Well, welcome back to another Coffee and a Chat. So, I thought tonight I'm just going to, yes, I'm filming this at night. You may look at it in the morning or whatever, but I'm filming this the night before the big event. So, tonight it's supposed to snow. And we just had snow a few days ago, and it lasted for like a day, and then it pretty much disappeared. So now, it's supposed to snow again tonight. It's been a lot colder. This snow will probably be around longer if we have it. And it's definitely, problems with ice that we already have problems with ice. So snow coming down on top of that. And it has brought back a memory. Marvin and I were laughing about it earlier today. So about 4 years ago, we had to put our Suburban into the shop. And I don't remember what the problem was with it, but there was something that needed to get fixed. So, we took it down, and Dad was still living at that time. And so Marvin and Dad and I drove down, in two vehicles. Dad rode with me in the little car. Marvin drove the Suburban. We left it at the shop, and, it was an overnight thing. So we'd be going back the next day. It should be done. We could pick it up. Well, it snowed. And it was a mess when it snowed. Lots of ice, very slick. A lot of people on the roads, they hadn't really expected that snow, so it hadn't, where they'd go out and salt the roads and stuff, that hadn't all been done in advance. It was one of those surprise things. So the three of us got in the little car to go down to pick up the Suburban. And I mean, there's a lot of people that were in the ditches. There was all kinds of issues going on. I mean, it was bad conditions. And Marvin was like, going home, after we pick up the Suburban, you're going to have to be really, really careful. Okay, so here's the thing. When I turned 16, I was not like all gung-ho to go get my driver's license. I was very nervous about it. I understood that being behind the wheel was serious stuff. You've got a lot of responsibility, and it can be dangerous. And my dad, who was in his dream life, he wanted to be a race car driver. My dad loved driving. And so, he would take us out and have us purposely, in a parking lot on ice, and have the car get out of control so he could teach us how to regain control. He was teaching me to parallel park, how to stop, because everything was a stick shift back then. My dad I didn't drive an automatic until I'd been married like 4 years, 5 years. I didn't know how to drive an automatic. I actually had to learn how to do that because I only knew how to drive a stick. Well, sticks are, they'll roll on you when you're on a hill and stuff. They're a little bit more involved to drive. And so my dad was trying to teach me to start and stop on hills, and we'll just say that it didn't always go well. And I had a few traumatic experiences with my dad trying to teach me how to be a good defensive driver. And so driving, I've never been one that's like, oh, I get to drive. It's a big responsibility. If somebody else wants to drive, unless they're really a horrible driver, I'm like, hey, go for it. I would much rather be the passenger than the driver. But sometimes you have to be the driver. Well, Dad, he no longer drove. The state had taken his driver's license from him in order to save other people's lives. He had to, because of his age and the dementia, they had him go take a driver's test with the state to see if he was still fit to drive. And we'll just say that the guy that took him out on the test didn't even complete the whole test. He just brought Dad back because he thought he was going to die before they got home. Dad got on the highway and drove the wrong way, or he would stop in the middle of the highway to flag some other car to cross the highway. He drove the wrong direction. He was told to turn up at the corner, and so he tried to go into a parking lot by going through a bus stop. It was not a good thing. So the guy just, he cut it short, and they just came back because it was very obvious that my dad was not fit to drive. And the way it works in our state was, I think that it was like, 3 weeks or something until it would go into effect. And so he had that long, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever it was, to surrender his driver's license, or else they would come and take it from him. Well, my dad, of course, had to wait. And in the meantime, he's going, well, can I drive? And guy's like, you shouldn't, but I can't stop you. And so, of course, my dad was going to drive all he could. Yeah, that's a whole nother story and a whole nother nightmare. So on this day when it was snowing, my dad, before dementia, he would have drove the car. It would have been fine. I could have been the passenger. There would have been no problem. But I was going to have to drive that car coming back. So we picked up the Suburban from the shop, and we started home. And so Marvin went first, and we were following him just in case he had a problem with the Suburban. And at one point, we're going down a very busy road, a lot of oncoming traffic, a lot of traffic in our lane. And the little car, kind of slipped off the edge of the pavement so that my tires were kind of riding along the edge. And what I should have done was just leave it be and kept on going, because I would have, and I don't know how many feet, maybe 100 feet or so. I would have come to a place where it went into a drive, somebody's driveway. It would have come back up on the pavement, and I could have eased back in on the lane. But instead, I think I panicked, and so I tried to steer off, back up onto the pavement, which Marvin was saying today, he thinks that front tire came on just fine, but when the back tire came up, there wasn't any traction or anything. I think that's a front wheel drive car. Anyway, the back end spun out of control, and now Dad and I are spinning across the lane we're in, across oncoming traffic, and we never had an impact. And I mean, there were so many cars there. It was one of those things you knew the hand of God was protecting you, because we should have hit with somebody, but we got clear through. Nobody had a wreck, and we ended up on the other side of the road on some grass, but everything was all ice. So then I'm just like hoping, and of course we're terrified. I'm hoping that Marvin caught a sight of us in the rearview mirror, because now I'm like, I don't know if I can get this car out of where we're at, back on the road, across traffic, to be headed in the right direction. I mean, I just was like in a panic. Well, Marvin did see us. I saw him pull over. He comes back. He gets across the road without falling on the ice. He gets to us, and he's like, what happened? And, and then, I'm like, well, I went off, and he goes, well, why didn't you just ride the edge, the shoulder till you got to that driveway, and then you could have, edged back on. It should, eased up there. You should have been fine. And I go, I know that's what I thought I was doing, but I think I panicked and tried to steer up onto the road, and on ice, of course, that didn't work. So, he goes, well, look, I'm going to drive this. I'll get it turned around and all, but first let me get you and Dad in the Suburban, and you just go ahead and drive it home. I mean, it's big, it's heavy, it handles better on the ice, it's got better tires for it, and it's 4-wheel drive. So if you're not going to get stuck in the snow or anything. So go do that. Well, my dad, he didn't want to get out of the car. No, I'll just stay here in the little car with Marvin. And I'm like, Dad, you don't want to ride with me? No, I'll stay here with Marvin. He was not about to get in that car with me in the truck. And Marvin's like, come on, Dad, I need you to ride with her so she's not alone. She might need some help. She might, need some moral support and stuff. And Marvin, bless his heart, sweet talked my dad into getting in the Suburban with me. But he didn't want to do it. So when we got in there, and it was much easier to drive. It was a whole nother ball game. It could handle the snow and the ice much better than the little car. And, and I'm like, Dad, I can't believe that you were going to jump ship on me like that. And he's like, yeah, no, I don't want to ride with you. And he's like, just, is everything... He was so stressed out. And, eventually, he got distracted, forgot he was stressed out, got distracted by all the cars we were seeing in the ditches, and just praising God that we weren't in the ditch. And we got home just fine. Marvin got the other car turned around and got home, and everything was okay. But I really don't want to drive in snow or ice now more than ever. Okay, so the reason all this is coming up is it's supposed to snow tonight, like I said, and we've already got some issues with ice. And tomorrow that Suburban has to go back in that shop, and would mean me by myself, because dad's not here anymore, having to, go pick Marvin up and drop him off and drive by myself. And it's just giving me a little anxiety. Well, Marvin's gonna, hopefully he'll just be able to wait, because they'd already repaired some stuff on it, and something didn't get hooked back right. And so it's caused us not to have any heat. And so they just need to figure out what they didn't hook up and whatever. So it shouldn't, the idea is it probably won't take long, and they can just, they'll just correct what what didn't get done, they'll correct. Or if it's something else, they think they've got what they need, and it'll all be fine. So hopefully he can just stay, wait, and then drive it home when it's done, and I don't have to go out there at all. And I will say too, they are planning on the snow coming, and they have been salting roads all day long. So everything's, got the brine down, and odds are that it would be pretty good driving. Shouldn't be too bad. So we'll see. But it just, in life, wouldn't it be wonderful if whatever situations or circumstances that might give us anxiety, that we could just not do them. We could just avoid them all the way, and it's never a deal. Not an issue. But that's not how life works. Inevitably, we have end up in a position where we have to do something that we really don't want to do. But I also know that when I've got that anxiety because of past experience, especially, and I'm faced with something that I really don't want to have to deal with, it usually works out just fine. And even if it's a little touch and go or whatever, God is in control, and he takes care of me. I know years ago, like when my daughters that are well into their 40s were just little babies, I don't remember where we were going or whatever, but my mom and I and one of the girls, my middle daughter, she was in the car with us, and then my husband and my dad had our other daughter in the car with them. And so our daughter, the oldest one, she was like 2, and so Amber was like 2, Autumn was a newborn, and evidently Amber saw a McDonald's and started saying McDonald's. And so her dad and grandfather were so thrilled with her doing that they pulled off the ramp off of the freeway and to go to McDonald's, to go through the drive-through to get her a Happy Meal or whatever. I don't even know if they had Happy Meals back then. Maybe they did. Anyway, get her a little something from McDonald's. And so my mom and I are following them. So we're like, okay, I guess we're pulling over. And I don't think it was icy. I'm not sure what happened, but when we came up, it was going off, on the off ramp, which went up to an overpass that we were going to have to go over. And when we got up there, before we hit the stops to where the stop sign was, some guy pulled in, came in front of us and almost cut us off. And I hit the brakes, and it was just one of those things. I think that it had been raining or something. Anyway, we spun out of control, much like what Dad and I did. Again, I was driving, and we almost spun off the overpass. But God took care of us, and we didn't, and I remember that my mom was like wanting to ride with the guys and take the baby with her and just leave me. So yeah, I'm not really thrilled about being the driver, and evidently I'm not always very good at it. And I'm willing to admit that. And I think too, that it was another one of those days where I think I was stressed out and not wanting to be driving, but my mom had surgery or something, and she sure wasn't in any shape to drive. And so I don't know why we split up that way, because it would have been better if my dad would have drove one vehicle and my husband drove the other. But I don't know. I think it was, but my mom wanted to, for us girls to ride together or whatever it was. So we have these things that happen, and, and then it makes us not want to have to go through that situation again. But like I said, we usually end up having to go through it, and having to do it again. And so now you go to approach it with anxiety, with stress, with fear. And yet, when we face it, if tomorrow, if I have to do that driving or whatever, I will hopefully remember to try to remain calm. It'll just be Jesus and I alone, when I have to drive. So I can talk out loud to him and he's not going to think I'm crazy. There's nobody else there to think I'm crazy. But just, talking to him, relying on him, resting in him, and knowing, because when I do go through these things and I have all that anxiety, it usually turns out to not be that big a deal. Even if something goes wrong, it's like, it's fine. It turns out fine because my focus is on Jesus, not on the circumstances so much, and that he's the one that gets us through. And I was, thinking about this, as I was kind of feeling the anxiety today, and over the possibilities what could happen tomorrow. But I was reminded again, because again, there's been some things that, changes, things happening, prices going up, that reminds me on a daily basis that things are changing, things are getting more difficult. Listening to other Christians that are, reading things in scriptures and pointing stuff out and going, and who also know they can feel it in their spirits. I know a lot of you have said things to me too, that that there's change coming. It's already here. That there is going to be some hard times. And, I was listening to one guy today, and he was talking about how, it talks about in the Bible that, when times start getting like what they are right now, that God says to get out of the city and go to the country or go to the mountains, but get out of the city because the city becomes crazy. And so, and I'm like immediately thinking, okay, we kind of live in the country. It's not as country as it used to be because all these housing developments going in. So there's more people, but are we too close to the city? And it's like, okay, wait. Lord, you work it out. You tell us if we need to be someplace other than where we're at. And if you want us here, I know you'll take care of us, and it's just as those things come up, and that worry, that anxiety, that panic that can start to set in. It's just like, take a deep breath. God's in charge. I'm listening to him. Marvin's listening to him. And we're just doing whatever he tells us to do. And that's, he'll tell us what to do. And even today we had to go, we were out running around. We thought we were going to be home doing some stuff, but then we ended up having to go out, and, we're just praying the whole way, just the two of us in the car talking to the Lord, and, and asking for his guidance, for his direction. And there was a truck that, that could potentially, be what we could get. And so we went to look at it, and it wasn't what they had said it was. And, as soon as we drove in, we knew, okay, this isn't what we're looking for. It's not going to work for us. But we met a really nice guy, and felt the need to pray for him. Now, that was after he'd already gone back inside. And I'm like, I just feel like maybe because it's like, why did God bring us all this distance and it's not even a truck that will meet our needs? I mean, it had it listed as a truck that would meet our needs. And then it's like, oh yeah, I don't know. That must have been, I must have hit the wrong number or whatever. And, so I must not have put the description in right, and so we're like, oh, and so, it's like, so why did the Lord bring us here? And it's like, maybe we're supposed to pray for him. And so Marvin and I sat there in the car for a few minutes and prayed for this guy. And I put him in my prayer journal when I got home. And then on the way home, because it's like, okay, God has us out here for some reason. And so then we drove by this place, and we had talked about stopping there just to look at some things, but of course you're going to have a salesperson that's going to try to sell you something, and we just kind of wanted to look. And so anyway, Marvin's like, yeah, let's do it. So we went back around and pulled into the parking lot. And then when some guy came out and said, well, let me get somebody to help you. And so this woman comes out. Well, somebody that Marvin knew that from a long time ago, that they worked together or whatever, but they hadn't seen each other. I think they figured in like 30 years. And, Marvin was able to, tell her how that God has changed his life and things that had changed for him. And we got to, and it's like, okay, that didn't happen by accident, that it just happens to be somebody. We know that things don't happen by accident. There's no such thing as a coincidence, that everything is part of God's plans. And so I really enjoyed, I told her, man, we got to have coffee sometimes. I really enjoyed her and the time we spent with her and talking to her and stuff. And I know that, if nothing else, that may be why we were out today, was for that reason. But the thing is, we could have just been frustrated and upset that we drove all this distance, like an hour or whatever, to go see a truck that wasn't even what it what it was advertised as. And we could have just been, oh, this is such a waste of time, or but instead our attitude was, okay, so if this isn't why God brought us here today, then what is it? Why does he have us out here today? And then we end up running into this gal and getting to talk to her. And I think, and there were other things that I think that God did for Marvin and I today, more information and stuff, that was really, that he showed us some things. And so I know it wasn't a wasted thing, but I think we were out today, so we would drive by this other place, so we would stop in. So, she was off work yesterday. She wouldn't have been there if we'd stopped yesterday. And it's just like, yeah. So we can trust God in the big things and the little things with whatever we're going through. So whether there's anxiety, frustration, whatever, instead of focusing on the circumstances and being worried about them or upset about them, we need to rest in the Lord. I know I need to rest in the Lord. I'll just put it all on me. I need to rest in the Lord. I need to be seeking his will and talking to him. And, if something doesn't work out the way I thought it was going to, then okay, Lord, then what is it that you're wanting to do here? What is it you're trying to say? What is going on? And, and not getting frustrated with it. And tomorrow, if I have to drive in snow, then okay, then Lord, it's another test of my faith in you to get me through this, to help me, not be overcome by anxiety for past bad driving and knowing that you can take care of me, that you're going to handle it. And, and being stronger in my faith than I am in my anxiety. So, yeah, just thought I'd share that with you guys. Kind of a fun little memory of my dad jumping ship on me and throwing me under the bus. Oh, yeah. But also, just one more of those lessons of why I need to keep my eyes on him. Because as things start looking more and more difficult, more and more unattainable, more and more challenging, it's okay. See, God knows. He knows what's coming. None of the future is going to be a surprise to him. Some of it will be a surprise to me, but none of it will be a surprise to him. And he'll get me through. He'll get Marvin through. He's got a plan for us, and we can trust him. I just need to stop and breathe sometimes. Just stop, take a nice cleansing breath and go, okay, Lord, back on track now. What is it that you want us to do? What is your plan here? And then walk in obedience. See, it doesn't do any good to know what he wants you to do if you're not going to obey him. What's the point then? So if he says, I want you to go out today and go look at a truck, it's not going to be the right one. But don't get disappointed when you get there. It's so I can get you to drive by this other place because I've got somebody for you to talk to. Just that simple. All right. Well, that's my little thought tonight. And now I'm pretty tired, so I think I'm going to go to bed and get some sleep so that when I get up in the morning, Marvin will go, he'll take the Suburban in, and then if they're going to need to keep it for a while and he needs to, if it's, that we're not going to be able to pick it up, or bring it home that day, or they can't get it done in, an hour or two, and he needs to come home, then Jesus and I will go pick him up and everything will be just fine. All right. I love you guys. Welcome new subscribers. got a couple of new ones, and I hope you guys enjoy your time with us. I sure look forward to my time with you guys every day. So you guys have a great day today. And then, yeah, I'm sure God will have something for me to share with you. And I'll talk to you again tomorrow. All right, you guys take care.